Hi, my name is Dr. Kistler-Pishka, or Dr. KP, and I am the faculty advisor to the PH 4960 Public Health Internship for undergraduate students. This instructional video will tell you everything you need to know about PH 4960, from when and how you should apply, obtaining a permit, registering in the class, securing an internship site, and getting ready to actually do your internship and participate in the course. So let me give you just a brief overview of what it requires for you to be involved in PH 4960. So as you may not know, this is a requirement of the public health major. So in order to complete your degree, every public health undergraduate student will participate in a 120-hour public health internship that is associated with the PH 4960 course. Now, in order to gain access to this class and receive credit, you must go through a formalized process, which is going to include getting accepted at a single approved internship site where you will conduct your internship hours. You will actually need to receive a permit to enroll in PH 4960. You will not be able to add the class by just adding it to your Get shopping cart. You'll actually need to get instructor permission to enroll. You will need to complete 120 hours of engaged public health fieldwork at an approved site, and this can only occur in the semester in which you're enrolled in PH 4960. So you cannot do an internship earlier in your public health career and then count those hours for the 4960 course. And then there's also a course, as I've mentioned, associated with the internship. And in this course, you will participate in 4 virtual meetings. You will engage in several assignments across the semester, such as reflections. You'll do a couple of trainings to obtain certificates for professional development, and you'll also be submitting monthly timesheets. Now, who is eligible for PH 4960? So in order to receive a permit, you must be an advanced senior standing. So what that means is that you have completed most of your public health coursework and be a senior in public health. However, we strongly, highly encourage you to complete PH 4960 in your final semester in the program. There are exceptions, but we really hope you'll do it as your final semester in college. Again, as I mentioned, you'll need to receive permission to enroll via obtaining a permit from me. And so when can you take internship? Internship is offered year-round. So no matter when you are planning to take it, depending on when you plan to graduate, it should be offered. So if you plan to enroll in the traditional fall or spring semester, then you will engage in a 15-week semester experience. However, we also always guarantee that we offer the internship course over the summer. So this is for the 10-week intersession, not the shorter intersession that occurs in May. And if you participate in the 10-week summer session, you will be expected to still carry out the same exact number of hours and course assignments as you would in a fall or spring semester over 15 weeks. You just have a shorter amount of time to do it. And we do not do internship opportunities over the winter intersession, which is only about 4 or 5 weeks in length. So I'll now go over the steps you need in order to obtain a permit and register, etc. So step 1 is you are just going to wait for not for a permit. You are going to wait for an email that will come to your email, your Cal State email from the department, which will have information on obtaining a permit for the following semester. So in other words, if you are not planning to take internship next semester, you will still get this email, but you will just ignore it. You will delete it and worry about this email when it's your time to enroll in PH 4960. If you are ready to enroll in 4960, this email will come out prior to registration. So you will have all the information you need before registration opens up for the following semester. So for example, if you are looking to enroll in spring semesters PH 4960, and email with information will go out sometime around October, which is typically a couple of weeks before registration opens up for spring. In this email will be information on how to obtain or apply for a permit. Namely, you will need to complete a survey that will be embedded as a link in this email. And this survey will ask you some contact information as well as find out where you are at in the degree program to ensure that you're at the right place in the degree program to take PH 4960. You'll complete that survey. The answers will be sent to us. Once you've completed the survey, you just wait until we have a chance to review survey responses. And then if you are deemed eligible for a permit, within a few weeks, you will receive a second email that includes a permit to enroll in the class. This again will come to you around the time it is registration time for the following semester. These emails with the permits will go to your Cal State LA email address. So please make sure that you are paying attention to that email address or you may miss the permit. And we were going to try and send these permits based on when your enrollment period begins. So you will get your permit, assuming you apply early enough before your registration window opens up. Next, you will need to register for PH 4960. And so once you receive the permit, it should be very close to when it's time for you to register for classes. And you'll need to register as soon as possible. That is because oftentimes these permits will expire within 3 days. And so you want to make sure that you use the permit within 3 days. Now, if for whatever reason you don't get a chance to register and you go to register and find that your permit is not allowing you to do so, you can simply email Ms. Caroline Trejo, her email address is here, and she will be able to reissue you a permit to register. Now, I want to squash everyone's concerns about enrolling in PH 4960. Absolutely everyone who is eligible for PH 4960 and who follows the proper protocol to receive a permit will be admitted into the course. There is no course enrollment cap. So if there are 200 people who want to do internship in the spring and all 200 are eligible, then all 200 people will be given the chance to enroll. So you don't need to worry like your other classes about being the first to register and getting waitlisted. Absolutely everyone who wants to take this class and is eligible can take it when they want to take it. Your next step would be to identify potential internship sites of interest. So either with your permit or in a follow-up email, you will be given a list of approved internship sites. Now, this is a very comprehensive list of opportunities in different settings, working with different populations, doing different kinds of work. And so we've really worked to cultivate a list that is going to have opportunities that gets absolutely everybody excited. And so you will receive this list of approved internship sites, and you will need to take some time really looking through it to see what speaks to you. Now, I encourage you to take some time reviewing it in detail and to have 2 to 3 internships of interest identified. But please make sure that you are only reaching out and applying to internships on this list. Since the pandemic, our internships have gotten a little bit more diverse in how they are delivered. So some of the internships on our list will be fully in person, some will be fully online, and many will be a hybrid, which is a combination of both in-person and online opportunities. So if you have a preference, you need to make sure when you're reviewing sites on the list of approved internship sites that you are selecting from sites that can offer a modality that works best for you. Now, we highly encourage you to choose from the list of approved sites, because these are sites that are already familiar with our students. They understand the expectations and protocols, and they already have agreements with our university. But if you are someone who's really passionate about a particular site that's not on our list, you do have an opportunity to add this new site to our list of approved internship sites. However, there is a process you will need to go through in order to get this new site considered and possibly added. So first of all, you have to reach out to the potential site and make sure they're actually interested in hosting public health interns formally. And they have to be interested not only in hosting you one time, but also having public health interns in the future, because it's a pretty extensive process and we don't want to go through it all just to have one student intern there one time. Also, you need to assure that this site is going to provide public or community health opportunities. These cannot be clinical opportunities. They really need to be geared toward the curriculum that you had it as a public health major in our program. So if you get interest from the site and they have some opportunities related to public health, then you will write a proposal that will include a bunch of information, such as the information on the actual agency or internship site, some information for a potential contact person who may be the person who serves as the future site supervisor. And then you need to explain what you would do with this internship, sort of what kinds of projects, what kinds of activities you'd be involved in. You would need to provide some learning objectives that you imagine you would attain at this site. And you also need to describe why you think students other than yourself might be interested in engaging in internships at this site in the future. Once this proposal is finished, you'll need to email it to me, and my email address is there. And this needs to be well in advance of when you hope to do internship. I suggest at least 2 months prior to the start of the semester in which you hope to intern, but even earlier than that would be ideal. So I will review the proposal, and if it looks like a good fit, I will reach out to your contact person at the site and I will talk to them and explain sort of the expectations for hosting interns, as well as the process we'll need to undergo in order to add them to our list. If everything goes as planned and the site is interested, willing, and able, then they'll need to go through a process where they will provide information via a survey. They'll need to provide a certificate of liability insurance, and I will generate a formal contract that will need to go to the organization and be signed by someone who's allowed to sign in the organization. So this is the process that can take some time. Sometimes that contract needs to go really high up the ladder and it takes a long time to get to the right person for signature. Or sometimes there's some negotiations that happen between the university and the agency. So this is why you want to start this process early in case it takes the site or the university longer than expected to finalize this contract. Now, it's important to note that if this process is not completed by the time your internship is supposed to begin, you will not be able to do your internship at this site. So it behooves you to have a plan B in case the internship site is not ready to be added to the list by the start of the semester. However, sometimes it works really nicely. We get everything in order and you're allowed to start your internship the next semester at the new site. And then future students will also have that as an opportunity for their internships. So now that you've received the list and you have some ideas of sites that you're interested in, you will need to apply to internships. So I encourage you to look at the list of approved internship sites and make sure you're aware of what sites are available, the various attributes to those sites, and then make sure you understand exactly what you need to do in order to apply, and note if there are any application deadlines. So you want to make sure that you apply exactly as asked on the list of approved internship sites, because if you don't, that's going to red flag you to internship sites as someone that may not be a good fit. So this process is really important. Most of the sites are going to require that you send them a professional email expressing interest, including a resume and a cover letter. Now, even though you may be applying to multiple sites, it's very important that you tailor your materials to each specific site. And this is important, especially in spring semester. It's always important, but in spring semester, there's a lot of competition for internships, both at Cal State LA in our department, as well as all the other programs of public health and MPH programs across Los Angeles. So it's very important that you take this process of applying very seriously and that you are always professional. Even if it's just an email to confirm a detail, you're always using salutations and being very professional and good in your follow-up. Now, I do want to let you know that sometimes sites are a little slow at returning emails to students, and that's because they have a lot going on. They're very busy. And so, of course, you want to give sites sufficient time to respond to you. So if you send an email on Monday and don't hear back by Tuesday, that's pretty typical. I would give them at least a week before you follow up. But you may need to follow up and repeat your contacts either through email or phone if you apply and you don't hear back. So give them time and be patient, but also please follow up as appropriate. So if you're interested and they're interested in you, oftentimes sites will require a formal interview. And so if you want to get some advice on the resume, cover letter, and interview processes, I highly encourage you to visit our Cal State LA Career Development Center. They have wonderful workshops on how to interview. They have one-on-one consultation. They have templates and resources on their website. So this is a really good tool for you to prepare for internships, as well as just as you're getting ready to graduate and start applying to jobs. Now, once you've applied and possibly interviewed, you'll probably get accepted. And so once you have been given a formal offer from an internship site, you want to make sure that you confirm acceptance at that site. Now, some of you will be very lucky and you will receive multiple offers from multiple sites. And that's a really good thing. That just means that you're going to have to be very strategic in deciding which site is right for you. And then it's really important that you let the sites know that you are not going to intern with the ones that you're going to decline the offers from. So that means that you don't just ignore them. You say, hey, can I have a week to think about this and I'll get you my answer? And then within a week, you need to say, yes, I've accepted this opportunity. I'm very excited. Or there's another internship that better aligns with my career goals. And I would like to thank you for the opportunity, but I will be declining the internship that you have offered. This needs to be done professionally and diplomatically, and it needs to be done in a timely manner. If you wait until the very end of this, the term before the semester begins, you may leave an internship site without the help it needs, and it may be too late for them to get a new intern. So while you really want to wait as long as possible to make the best decision, you also need to be considerate of the site's needs. Then you get prepared for the internship. So once you've secured your site, you just get to chill and enjoy whatever break or wherever you're at prior to the next semester. However, a few weeks before the semester begins, you will receive an email from Canvas that is going to start talking to you about some required pre-internship documents. These are mandatory. These are documents that are generated through our university that are required in order for students to do internships for course credit. So this will include a formal verification of acceptance at your internship site. You'll need to complete a learning plan and participation guidelines. You'll need to participate in an online COVID-19 training and complete an acknowledgement form. And you will need to purchase SPLIP or student professional liability insurance, which will cost you $20. So instructions will all be made available, very detailed, explicit instructions through an email and on Canvas a few weeks before the semester begins. You will need to complete all of this paperwork, preferably before the semester begins or before you formally begin your internship hours. So this means a few weeks before the semester, you'll need to be checking your email again, your Cal State LA email, and you will need to access the course Canvas page before the start of the semester. Once the semester begins, you start your internship, you start the class, and you start on your PH 4960 journey. So I want to let you know that you are not allowed to start your internship hours before the semester begins. Sometimes I get emails from students who want to get a head start, or they have hours that they've already accumulated that they want to count for their internship. But you may not begin counting your internship hours until the formal official first day of the semester in which you are enrolled in PH 4960. So if you want to start at your internship before the semester, you're allowed to if you just want to get kind of comfortable and get in the groove, but you will not be able to count those hours, and that service will be considered voluntary. Once the semester begins, you may begin counting your hours. At the start of the semester, you will also receive the syllabus for PH 4960, which will give you insight into what to expect in regards to the course. So just a little heads up so you know what to plan for. The course is not your traditional class where you meet every Tuesday and Thursday or something like that. We will only have 4 virtual meetings across the semester, kind of spaced out across the semester. Now, the dates and times of those meetings are determined before the semester begins. It will not be published on Get or in the course catalog. And we really try and pick days and times for these meetings that seem to happen when there aren't other senior level classes occurring. So those dates and times will be shared with you on the Canvas page and in the syllabus. And don't worry, we really want you to attend those meetings live because they talk about professional development, they talk about the internship, they talk about grad school, lots of things that are probably on your mind for post-graduation life. But if you are unable to attend one or any of the meetings, they will always be recorded and made available for you to watch after the fact, and they will be required viewing. You'll also participate in several assignments, but these are not the assignments you've gotten used to, like research papers and things like exams. These are much more intended to have you reflect on your experience and to have you tie the classroom knowledge to the experience you're having at your internship, and to get you thinking about your career and other next steps once you graduate. And then all 120 hours must be completed before the end of the semester in which you are enrolled. You cannot just extend your hours into the summer or do hours in another semester. So you really need to plan ahead for the semester you do your internship to have about 8 hours a week of almost like a part-time job that you will be participating in. So plan ahead and make sure that when you choose to do internship is going to work well and set you up for success. So I've gone over a lot of information. Let me quickly summarize those steps one more time. So again, every semester before registration opens up for the following semester, emails will go out to all public health students describing the process for obtaining a permit to enroll in PH 4960. When it is your time to enroll, you will look for that email and you will click on the link to the survey, and you will complete a very brief survey to provide us with some information. Once you complete the survey, you will wait a couple of weeks. We will vet your responses. And then if you are eligible to take PH 4960, you will receive a second email before registration opens up with a permit to enroll in the course. You will then use that permit to enroll in the course at your registration time. Please make sure you enroll within 3 days of receiving the permit. But if it doesn't work, you can always email Ms. Trejo to reissue a permit. Then you will need to identify potential internships from the list of approved internship sites. This list will either be sent to you with your permit or in a second follow-up email that will come shortly after registration opens up. It is imperative that you only select internships from this list unless you go through the process of adding a new site with me many, many months before registration occurs. You will then be professional and detailed and get a lot of practice in putting forth very well done applications such as resumes, cover letters, and professional emails. You will most likely go through some sort of an interview process, and then hopefully you will get an internship. You will then receive information a few weeks before the semester begins that will provide you with documents and processes you need to undertake as part of the mandatory pre-internship paperwork. You will work on all of that before the semester begins, and you will either submit everything before the first day of the semester or before you begin your internship during that semester. Then on the first day of the semester, you may start your internship. You will also begin participation in the PH 4960 course, which will include some virtual meetings, some assignments, and tracking your hours on timesheets. Pretty simple and straightforward, right? Now, everything I think you need to know about this process is in this video. I am also going to post this PowerPoint, and at the end of that version of the PowerPoint will be several additional slides with frequently asked questions. So if something you are still wondering was not addressed in this video, you may check out the PowerPoint, or you can certainly reach out to me, Dr. KP, the faculty advisor, to ask any questions about the internship. My email address is here. We can either set up an in-person appointment or meet over Zoom, or we can also just email back and forth if that's easiest. So I hope that this was informative and helped clear up any confusion around PH 4960. I am so excited to see you in a future PH 4960 course. Good luck with your search, and I will see you soon.